She refused to let the black kid swim, then found out he owns the pool. I'm sorry, but you can't swim here, the woman said, crossing her arms tightly across her chest, blocking the entrance to the gate like a sentry. Her voice was sharp, loud enough for a few heads to turn from the poolside chairs. Her name was Patricia, middle-aged, sun hat perched on highlighted blonde hair, her smile tight and polite to everyone who looked like her, and her eyes sharp with suspicion to everyone who didn't. Malik didn't flinch. At 14, he was used to it. Too used to it. He was dressed in a simple white tank top, red swim trunks, and flip-flops. He held his towel close to his chest, his younger sister Jada peeking shyly from behind him. She was only 10, and this was supposed to be her birthday treat. I'm not doing anything wrong, Malik said calmly, but with a flicker of pain in his voice. We just want to swim, Patricia scoffed. I don't care. This pool is private, membership only. Malik's brows furrowed. We are members. Don't lie, kid, she snapped. I've never seen you around here. Maybe you snuck in. I'm calling security. His sister's eyes filled with tears. Please don't, she whispered. Malik turned to comfort her, whispering, It's okay, Jada. I got this. A man sitting near the edge of the pool looked over and muttered, Patricia, maybe just check the list. I know who belongs here. Robert, she cut him off, eyes never leaving the two children. Trust me. Malik's fists clenched, not because of the insult, not even because of the embarrassment, but because this wasn't the first time. It had happened at the park, at the mall, at the damn ice cream shop last month, and he was tired. But this one hit differently, because he knew something Patricia didn't. He owned the pool, literally. I said, I'm calling security, Patricia repeated, tapping her phone screen with sharp, painted nails. Malik didn't budge. He looked at her without blinking, his arms at his sides, his towel now hanging loosely from his fingers. Behind him, Jada clutched the edge of his shirt, trembling, tears threatening to spill. Go ahead, he said softly, almost too calmly. Let's see what happens. That threw her off. She stared at him like he'd just challenged her authority in front of an audience, which, let's be honest, he had. A few parents around the pool glanced over with mild interest, their sunglasses reflecting the midday sun, kids still splashing, but voices lowering. I've been part of this neighborhood for 12 years, she said, raising her chin. I have every right to know who's coming into our spaces. Funny, Malik said, letting his towel drop to the ground as he pulled something out of his bag, because I've only been part of it for 2 months. He held up a key card. Her expression twitched. That doesn't prove anything. It proves enough to unlock the pool gate. He took one step forward. Patricia stepped back instinctively, but then caught herself, puffing her chest like she had something to defend. Malik swiped the card. The gate beeped, clicked, unlocked. Jada blinked, her fear melting into confusion. Wait, how do you have that? She whispered. Malik gave her a wink. Just wait. Patricia's lips moved, but no words came out. Need help getting in? He asked, looking her dead in the eye. I don't know where you got that card, but this is trespassing, she barked. That's funny, he said, pushing the gate open and gesturing for Jada to walk through. Because last I checked, trespassing means being somewhere you don't belong, and I do belong here. More than you, actually. Patricia flushed. Excuse me. Jada was already halfway to the pool, her towel fluttering behind her like a superhero cape. Malik followed, unbothered. Patricia stormed after him. Young man, I demand to speak to your parents, she hissed. You can, he said, settling his things on a nearby lounge chair. But they don't live here. I do. I doubt that very much. Then maybe you should ask Mr. Long, he said, pointing toward the clubhouse. Or maybe check the ownership records. I what? Malik turned to face her, his voice calm but deadly clear. My name is Malik Walker. I'm 14 years old, and I'm the majority shareholder of this development, including this pool. My mom passed 6 months ago. She left it all to me. My uncle helps me manage the paperwork. So next time you decide who does and doesn't belong here, maybe ask yourself if you're ready to get banned. Silence. Complete and suffocating. Robert, the man by the pool who had spoken earlier, took off his sunglasses slowly. He's not kidding, he muttered. I remember hearing something about the Walker estate buying into the complex. Patricia's voice cracked. That can't be. You're just a kid. And yet I own this pool. Malik said, funny how that works. For a second, no one moved. Then Jada did the most unexpected thing. She cannonballed into the water with a delighted scream. Your sister seems to enjoy her birthday, Robert added. Patricia's face went white. You planned this. Malik looked at her. I didn't plan you. You volunteered. She stormed off, humiliated, muttering something about calling the HOA. Malik ignored it. He walked to the pool, dipped his feet in, then slid in beside his sister, who was giggling in disbelief. You really own this whole thing? Not just this, he whispered. I own the gym, the tennis courts, half the community center. Mom bought in before they knew what she was doing. She was quiet about it. She left it all to you. She knew what it would mean. Jada nodded slowly. That's kind of awesome. Malik smiled, but the smile didn't fully reach his eyes. It's also a lot. Later that day, after most of the families had left and the sun had begun to set behind the suburban rooftops, Patricia returned. She didn't come to fight. She didn't come to yell. She came with her son, Mason, a pale boy about Malik's age, who looked like he wanted to melt into the pavement. Patricia approached like someone walking barefoot on glass. I may have misjudged the situation, she said stiffly. I didn't know. Malik stood from the edge of the pool. Didn't know what? That I had money, that I had rights. Patricia flinched. No, I didn't know you, and that was wrong. Malik nodded. It was. Mason looked at him. You're like the boss of this place. Malik raised an eyebrow. Technically, but I don't act like one, unless I have to. Patricia cleared her throat. Would it? Would it be okay if Mason joined the swim? Malik looked at Jada, who gave a tiny shrug. Then he looked back. Sure, but he's got to beat me in a race first. Mason's eyes widened. Wait, seriously? Malik grinned. Welcome to the pool, man. And as the two boys lined up at the edge, Patricia sat quietly on the lounge chair, the weight of her assumptions pressing heavier than the humid air. The boys dove in, and for once, the water didn't know color. It only knew who could swim. Malik dried his hair with the edge of his towel, drops of water trailing down his neck as Mason surfaced behind him, laughing. The race had ended in a draw, though Malik knew he'd let the other boy catch up in the last second. It wasn't about winning. It was about drawing a line under what had happened, about showing Jada she was safe here, that they didn't have to run anymore. Patricia clapped once, awkwardly, as if unsure whether she should cheer or apologize again. The air around her still carried tension, the kind that clings to skin like summer humidity. She stood up slowly, her eyes searching Malik's face for permission to say something more. Thank you, she said softly, for letting Mason join. Malik nodded once. He didn't do anything wrong. Patricia hesitated, then sat back down. You know, when I first moved here, I thought this neighborhood would be different, safe, familiar, the kind of place where everyone knows the rules. Malik didn't look at her as he spoke. Safe for who, though? That silenced her. Her hands twisted in her lap, fingers fidgeting with the hem of her sundress. My mom used to say, he continued, still facing the pool, that people like us had to be twice as good, twice as quiet, and twice as prepared to prove we belonged, even when we already did. Patricia swallowed, her throat tight. I didn't know your mom. She wouldn't have wanted you to, Malik replied. Not the way you acted. It was harsh, but true. She took it, visibly biting her lip. I want to do better, not just say it. Malik finally turned to her, then start by not assuming. Next time someone walks in here looking like they don't fit, maybe ask their name instead of threatening to call security. She nodded slowly. You're right, Jada, now sitting at the pool's edge, kicking water with her feet, looked up at them both. Can we come again tomorrow? Malik grinned. Every day, if you want. It's our pool. That night, Malik walked home with Jada by his side, her small hand wrapped around his. The sky above them turned a dusty pink, fading into a blue so deep it looked infinite. Their house wasn't big, but it was theirs. Tidy hedges, a white porch swing, and the small brass plaque next to the door that read Walker. Inside, the air smelled faintly of lavender and old books. His uncle Darius was on the couch with spreadsheets open on his laptop, glasses slipping down his nose. Hey, you two, Darius said, without looking up. How was the pool? Eventful, Malik said. Jada jumped onto the arm of the couch. Malik beat a kid in a race and then told off a mean lady. Didn't tell her off, Malik said quickly. Just explained. Darius looked up. Explained with your face. Maybe a little, Malik admitted with a small grin. Darius chuckled. That's my boy. He closed his laptop and leaned back, eyeing Malik. You handled it. I handled it. Good. You know your mama would be proud. Malik went quiet. The mention of her name still ached like a bruise. 6 months. It still didn't feel real. Some mornings, he woke up expecting to hear her humming from the kitchen, singing Al Green or Sade while flipping pancakes. But now the house was quieter, the echoes softer. I miss her, Jada said suddenly. We all do, Darius replied, pulling her into a hug. Malik stood, walked to the mantel above the fireplace. Her photo sat there, framed in gold. A beautiful black woman with strong eyes and a warm smile. The kind of smile that made people feel welcome or put them in their place. You know, Malik said, his voice quieter. She used to sit by that pool with a book and just observe. She'd see people stare, hear the whispers, but she never said anything. She just kept showing up. That was her protest, Darius said, not yelling, just being. Malik nodded. Now I get it. The days that followed were strange. Word got around, not just about what Patricia did, but about who Malik was. Suddenly, neighbors who had never noticed him began waving, some overly polite, some apologetic, and a few silent, eyes down, like the truth was too heavy to look at. At the next HOA meeting, Malik sat beside Darius at the long wooden table. The board, mostly older, mostly white, shifted uncomfortably in their seats when he entered. Thank you for coming, Mr. Walker, said Susan, the HOA president. We didn't expect. Well, I did, Malik interrupted, because it's my responsibility. And there's something I want to address. Susan blinked. Of course. Malik stood, looking around the room. I know I'm young. I know most of you probably thought I'd sell the properties my mom left me or let someone else handle it. But I'm not going anywhere, and I'm not just going to be an owner on paper. Some shifted in their seats. A few smiled, nodding faintly. I'm going to invest here. Make this a better place. Not just for people who look like you, but people who look like me, like my sister, like the next kid who walks in and gets stopped because someone thinks they don't belong. He let the words hang there, thick and undeniable. That's all, he finished, and sat down. The room was quiet. Then someone clapped, then another, then the whole room. Later, outside, Patricia approached him again. This time, no sunglasses, no forced smile. May I? She asked, gesturing to the bench beside him. He nodded. I've been thinking a lot, she began, about that day, about how fast I jumped to conclusions. I've been trying to explain it to myself, and all I come up with is there's no excuse. Malik didn't say anything. I was scared, she admitted, but not of you, of being wrong, of having to admit that the world's changing, and maybe I'm not changing with it fast enough. That's not my job to fix, Malik said quietly. I know, but it's mine. They sat in silence, the breeze gently rustling the leaves around them. A pair of kids laughed in the distance. Malik looked up at the sky, the same sky he used to stare at when his mom would tell him, the world will try to shrink you. Don't let it. Fill the space. Own it. He turned to Patricia. You want to make it right? She nodded eagerly. Good, he said. Then start showing up to every pool event. Bring snacks. Volunteer. Be seen. And maybe next year, when another black kid walks in, make sure You're the one welcoming them. Her throat tightened. She nodded again. I will. And she did. Patricia showed up. She brought popsicles to the next pool party. She invited families she'd never spoken to before. She sat next to Jada during swim lessons. She learned names, stories, favorite colors. She wasn't perfect, but she was trying. One evening, Malik stood by the pool fence, watching the sun dip low. Jada was already in the water, shrieking with joy as she splashed her new friends. Darius stepped beside him. You did that. Malik smiled. We did. No, man. That was you. He paused. You proud of me? Darius slung an arm around his shoulder. Your mama would be doing backflips in heaven if she saw you now. Malik let out a quiet laugh. She always said, leave the place better than you found it. You think you have? He looked at the pool, the people, the laughter. Yeah, he said, I think I have. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like he had to prove anything. He just belonged. Not because he owned the pool, but because he owned who he was. Weeks passed, and the neighborhood began to shift. Not overnight, not in big, dramatic waves, but in small, meaningful ripples. Malik noticed it in the way people stopped and greeted him. Not as a curiosity, not as the black kid who owns the pool, but simply as Malik, the boy who showed up, the one who listened, the one who wasn't afraid to speak when it mattered. Still, not everyone was happy about it. It started with the whispers. He heard them in the grocery store aisle, by the park benches, drifting through the community board Facebook page that he'd finally joined under Darius's insistence. Should a teenager be in charge of anything? It's not safe to let someone with no experience run parts of a neighborhood. Didn't he just inherit that stuff? That doesn't mean he earned it. Malik read them in silence, scrolling late into the night with Jada fast asleep beside him and the ceiling fan humming above. One morning, he found a letter taped to the pool gate. This pool should reflect its history and respect its community, not be turned into a social experiment by a child with a chip on his shoulder. We built this place. Don't forget that. No name, no signature. He ripped it down, heart pounding in his chest, not because of the threat, but because it sounded like something Patricia might have written weeks ago. He held onto the paper for a moment, then folded it in half, walked to the clubhouse, and pinned it to the bulletin board. He wrote underneath it in red marker, my name is Malik Walker, and I won't forget what you built, but I'll make sure it never excludes anyone again. The next day, the letter was gone, but in its place were sticky notes of support. You're doing amazing. Ignore the noise. We see you. Malik. My daughter said she wants to be like you when she grows up. Some were signed, some weren't, but every one of them meant more than anyone could know. Darius noticed the change too. At dinner one night, as they sat with takeout containers and root beers between them, he leaned in and said, so, you ready? Ready for what? For the real next step. Not just keeping the lights on. Making something bigger. Malik raised an eyebrow. You mean like? I mean, Darius said, sipping his drink. What if we turn that pool into more than just a summer hangout spot? What if we made it something for every kid in the city who doesn't have a safe place to learn how to swim? Malik blinked. You mean open it to the public? No, Darius said. I mean build a new one, bigger, better, under your name, with scholarships, lifeguard training, water safety classes. You got the inheritance, the backing, the board respects you now. Why not use it? Malik leaned back in his chair, the idea burning in his mind like a wildfire. He thought about every time he'd seen his sister shrink under a stranger's stare, every time he'd stood still while someone questioned his right to simply be somewhere. Yeah, he said, let's do it. They called it the Wave Project. Within a month, Malik and Darius had started planning with architects. The new facility would be just 10 minutes from the neighborhood of Sleek. Modern aquatic center with indoor and outdoor pools, classrooms, and community rooms for mentorship programs. They'd already secured donors. Local Black-owned businesses pledged their support. The city was watching, but some people weren't happy. When the local news ran a story on it, teenage pool owner turns tragedy into community vision, the anonymous emails returned. He's ruining the neighborhood. This is what happens when you give kids money. He's using race as a tool. That's dangerous. And yet, at the groundbreaking ceremony, over 300 people showed up. Jada held Malik's hand on the stage. She was wearing a yellow sundress, her hair braided with little white beads that clinked together when she turned. Malik stepped to the microphone. The crowd quieted. 6 months ago, he said, I just wanted to swim. I just wanted my little sister to have a birthday where no one looked at her like she didn't belong. And now, we're building something bigger than a pool. We're building proof that kids like us aren't just statistics. We're the future. People clapped. Some cried. Darius put a hand on his shoulder and squeezed. After the ceremony, Patricia approached. Not with Mason this time, but with her husband. She looked different, less rigid, more real. I just wanted to say, she began, that we'd like to donate, personally, to whatever scholarship fund you start. It's not about making amends. It's about doing the right thing. Malik smiled faintly. Thank you. She hesitated. Also, Mason says hi. He's at swim team tryouts. Tell him to come by the center when it's done, Malik said. We'll need volunteers. That night, Malik sat on the front steps of his house with Jada curled beside him, her head on his shoulder. You really think we can do this? She asked. I know we can. She looked up at him, blinking. You're like a superhero, he laughed. Nah, just a boy who didn't back down. As the stars came out, Malik thought of his mom again. Her strength, her stillness, the way she made the world tilt without raising her voice. I hope she sees this, Jada whispered. She does, Malik said, wrapping his arm around her. In the months that followed, the center came to life. Kids from all over the city signed up. Families who'd never had access to swim lessons before showed up, some with tears in their eyes. Local colleges sent coaches to volunteer. National publications picked up the story. One reporter asked Malik during an interview, You're only 15 now. Do you realize how rare this is? He paused, thinking. I think what's rare, he said slowly, is when people believe black kids can do more than survive. When they believe we can lead. That's all I'm trying to show, that we can lead. The clip went viral. Suddenly, Malik was being invited to speak on panels. He was nominated for Youth Leadership Awards, and he turned every spotlight into a platform for others. Every question about his wealth, he turned into a statement about representation. Every praise, he redirected toward his mom. And still, he never stopped swimming. One evening, long after the center had opened and the sun had dipped behind the water's edge, Malik stayed behind to lock up. The lights in the pool shimmered like stars under the surface. He stood at the edge, dove in. The water wrapped around him like home, like memory, like justice. He floated on his back, staring at the ceiling. And for the first time in his life, Malik didn't feel like the kid who had to prove he belonged. He felt like he owned the future, because he did. 3 months later, the day of the grand opening ceremony arrived. The Malik Walker Aquatic Center stood tall in the heart of the city, a building made of curved glass and stone. Etched into the entrance were the words, For those who were told they don't belong, come swim anyway. Hundreds gathered, some in dress clothes, some in jeans and T-shirts, but all carrying something weightier than anticipation, hope. Local politicians showed up, coaches, activists, parents with cameras, and grandparents in wheelchairs. A group of little girls in matching swim caps giggled as they waited by the water's edge, their reflections dancing like light across the blue. Inside, Malik stood in front of a wall-sized photo of his mother, a candid picture of her laughing at a picnic, her eyes half closed, her curls catching the sunlight. Below the picture, in gold lettering, in loving memory of Dr. Camille Walker, she taught us to stay afloat even in deep waters. Jada tugged on his blazer. You okay? She asked. Malik adjusted the knot in his tie. Yeah, just thinking. Darius approached from behind, placing both hands on Malik's shoulders. She'd be proud. Hell, I'm proud. You built this. No, Malik said, eyes still locked on his mother's photo. We built this. Me, you, Mom, Jada. Everyone who ever had to sit at the edge of a pool and wonder if they'd be pushed out. Outside, the crowd quieted as Malik stepped up to the microphone. His voice echoed across the courtyard. When I was 14, he began. Someone told me I didn't belong in a place my mother paid for, a place my name was legally tied to, a place I owned. And instead of just defending myself, I made a promise that no other kid would feel what I felt that day. He paused. So I turned pain into purpose. I turned shame into space. And now, this place belongs to everyone. Cheers erupted. Cameras flashed. Jada beamed from the front row, sitting beside Mason, yes. That Mason now wearing a staff shirt with coach in training stitched on the sleeve. Even Patricia stood clapping, tears in her eyes, not from guilt, but from clarity, from watching something she once stood in the way of become something her son now thrived inside. After the speeches, Malik walked around the edge of the pool as kids lined up for their first lesson. One girl, maybe 6 years old, clutched the railing tightly, terrified to step in. Malik crouched beside her. First time. She nodded, lip trembling. You know, I was scared my first time, too. She looked up at him, eyes wide. You were? Yep, I thought I'd sink, but someone believed in me. So now, I get to believe in you. She took a deep breath and stepped into the water. Cheers rose from the staff. Malik smiled. Later, when most of the guests had left and the sun was fading, he walked through the center alone, past the trophy wall, the lifeguard lounge, the lockers with names in multiple languages, spaces made for belonging, not exclusion. In the back, tucked near a small garden patio, he found a sealed letter. It was taped to the bench where his mother used to sit during Jada's old swimming lessons. He opened it. Dear Malik, if you're reading this, then you've turned your heartbreak into healing. You've made a space that matters. I always told you to be bigger than their boxes. And look at you now. You're too big for the whole damn blueprint. Keep building. Keep loving. And whenever it feels heavy, swim. Love, Mom. His hands trembled. He folded the letter carefully and slipped it into his blazer. As he stood under the evening sky, a voice called out behind him, "Race you to the deep end." He turned. Jada stood in her swimsuit, goggles crooked on her forehead. Malik laughed. You sure? I'm kind of fast now. I've been training, she said confidently. Bring it. He pulled off his jacket, setting it gently over the bench. All right then. On 3. 1, 2, 3. They dove. The water rose to meet them, not as resistance, but as embrace, as freedom. And in that shimmering, endless blue, Malik remembered everything, the pain, the silence, the triumph, and most of all, the belonging. Because this wasn't just about a pool. This was about claiming space in a world that tried to shrink you, and then opening that space wide enough for others to dive in after you. And as he surfaced, lungs full, heart steady, laughter rising from the deep, Malik Walker didn't just float, he soared. The weeks after the grand opening blurred into a wave of action. Local news covered the center weekly. Journalists wanted interviews. High schools invited Malik to speak. Nonprofits reached out for partnerships. Even universities, ones Malik hadn't even dreamed of yet, sent him letters saying they wanted to meet him, mentor him, or someday offer him a full ride. But Malik kept his feet on the ground. I'm not building for attention, he told Darius over breakfast one morning. I'm building so that one day, a black kid who walks into a space like that won't feel surprised he's allowed there. Darius nodded, pouring more syrup on his pancakes. Still, he said, attention can help you build faster. If it comes, just use it smart. And so Malik did. He formed a youth board made up of other teens from underrepresented communities. He gave them decision-making power over what programs the center offered, what instructors were hired, and which neighborhoods to expand into next. He met a kid named Jordan from the East Side whose mom worked 2 jobs and still couldn't afford basic swim lessons. "Give me a shot," Jordan said shyly. "I'll work. I'll clean. I'll mop the locker rooms." Malik smiled. "You don't have to work to earn safety. You already deserve it." But Jordan did end up working there as a junior lifeguard, fully trained and proudly wearing a whistle around his neck by the end of the summer. Other centers followed. Malik consulted with youth leaders in cities he'd never been to: Detroit, St. Louis, Oakland. They called him the kid with the pool. But it wasn't about the water anymore. It was about space, ownership, respect. And yet, the world outside wasn't always kind. Online trolls mocked his age, his skin, his vision. Some conservative blogs ran stories with headlines like "Teen Social Justice Swimmer Pushes Race Agenda Through Pools." One day, walking out of the center, Malik found the front windows smeared with red paint. The words "Stay in your lane" were scrawled across the glass. Jada saw it first. She gasped. "Malik." He stared at it quietly for a long time. Then he walked to the janitor closet, grabbed a bucket and sponge, and began to clean. Others joined: kids, parents, even Patricia and Mason. No one said a word. The act said enough. That night, he posted a photo of the freshly cleaned window, captioned simply, "If we stopped every time someone tried to paint us out, we'd never finish the masterpiece. So we keep going." The post went viral. Again, this time, it wasn't just shares and likes. It was donations. Celebrities posted it. A Black Olympic swimmer, one of Malik's lifelong heroes, messaged him privately, "Keep swimming, little brother. I'm watching. We all are." It wasn't long before someone nominated him for the National Courage Award for Youth Leadership. At first, he hesitated to accept. "It's not about me," he told Darius. "It's about all of us." Darius just smiled. "You accepting that award tells the world we exist. That's not ego, that's visibility." So he went. He wore a dark navy suit. Jada wore white. Darius wore a bow tie he hadn't dusted off in 10 years. As Malik took the stage, standing under a spotlight before thousands, he began the same way he always did. "When I was 14, someone told me I couldn't swim here." He paused, took a breath. "But I didn't fight just to swim. I fought to own, to build, to invite. And tonight, I'm not here because I won a race. I'm here because I opened a gate behind me." The entire room stood. Malik didn't smile like a boy who had won. He stood like a man who had planted something and was now watching it grow. Later that night, in the hotel hallway, an old woman in a wheelchair stopped him. Her eyes were sharp, lined with age and wisdom. "My grandson was scared to swim," she said. "Said he didn't feel welcome. Then he saw you on TV. Now he dives in like he owns the place." Malik crouched beside her. "He does own the place. Every kid like him does. We're just reminding them." She patted his cheek. "Then keep reminding the world." He did. Every speech, every pool, every voice. He returned home one late evening, long past midnight, to find Jada asleep on the couch, a homemade card on the table in front of her. Glitter letters spelled out "YOURE, my hero." Tears welled in his eyes, not for the accolades, not for the headlines, but because he had built a world where his little sister could walk into any room and never doubt that she belonged. He leaned down, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "You're my hero too." Then he turned off the light, stepped onto the porch, and stared up at the sky. It was endless, wide, beautiful. And Malik Walker, once told to stay out, once laughed at, once doubted, stood tall, because he didn't just change the rules, he changed the game. And it all started with one word: no. No to being dismissed, no to being erased, no to waiting for permission to belong. And in its place, he wrote a new word across every wall, every pool, Every child's future, yes, yes. You matter, yes. You're seen, yes. You're home, always.